All right, let's welcome Gwen Tolios.
Thanks. So just a little bit about me to start. My name is Gwen Tolios. I'm a hybrid author. So that means I have had books published with both small presses, as well as I have done stuff by myself. So if you have questions about working with a publisher or working and getting your own book published, we can go through all of that here. Here's examples of some of my titles. So the top line is things that I have done completely independently. Those are a combination of short stories and middle grade. And then down below are things that I have actually done with other authors. Denizens of the Deep is an anthology that I actually was the lead anthologist with. Written with Pride and Returning with You, I worked with publishers with. So I had an editor and I had a cover artist and all of that. So today what I wanted to go over was the steps of publication and the different levels of investment. So if you have no money, what are your options? And what are your options if you have a little bit more cash, or as you're building your business, or if you just have the extra income and this is something that you want to invest in because it's your hobby. And then, sorry, we're actually not doing the live demonstration today, right? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no.
Sorry. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a budget, you have to put in the sweat equity. So it's a lot more work on you if you don't have the budget, which I'm assuming most of us don't have. I still do a lot of this work myself because it can be expensive if you want to publish a book. So there are 3 basic steps to getting your book out there. Number 1 is you have to polish your prose. So make sure that you have a final book. Please don't publish your first draft. 2, you then have to build the book. So this is where you're formatting it. You need to get it into the condition that Amazon needs, that Ingram Spark needs, that Barnes and Noble needs. So you have to build your files. And then you have to market your book. Otherwise, people aren't going to buy it. So we're going to start with polish your prose. First things first, obviously you have to write your book. And I don't want to go through how to write details for that. I want to really just focus on the tools that you're going to want to use to write it. If you don't have any money, that's the Shoestrings option. Google Docs, it's free. So it's an online write processing software. Go ahead and use it. OpenOffice is an open version of Word. So you can just download that and go for it. Notepad usually comes free with most notebooks. And then Noveler or AutoCrit. Those are writing specific softwares that offer free versions for people who want to try them. If you want a more balanced option, so once again, that's where you have some cash, you're reinvesting in your business, or you just want to support yourself, Scrivener is the popular tool of choice for most authors. $60 for life. So it's a pretty good deal. Then there's Noveler Plus, so that's $5 a month, or $48 for a year, so that's a subscription service, and AutoCrit, which is $30 a month. Noveler and AutoCrit also have added features built in for editing and grammar checking, if that's something that you need. So you can have a combination word processor or editing tool. And then the time is money option, Noveler Pro. So that's a little more, 18 a month, 168 a year, or 500 for life. 500 for life is a lot. I will admit that, but it also gets you access to the writing community. So you're getting some classes access to a network, as well as some classes for that 500 for life. And it gets you like anytime the software gets upgraded. And if you think about it, if you're paying almost 200 a year, then if you're going to be writing long-term, the $500 might be worth it. But if you don't have the money, please just go ahead and use Google Docs. Other thing I put on here, Microsoft Word as the time is money option. It is actually one of the more expensive word processing softwares out there, but most people already have it. So if you have it, feel free to continue to use it. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Atticus is a very specific writing software. It's new to the market. It's only been here for about a year. $150 for life, so making it much cheaper than some of the other things. Atticus also works as a formatting tool if you want to format your book for Amazon and Barnes and Noble down the road. Please also look for sales. I know it's January, but Black Friday, Scrivener specifically tends to have like a 20 to 40% off scale. And if you're familiar with National Novel Writing Month, that happens in November, a lot of these companies tend to be sponsors. And so they will have deals for either winners or just people who are participating. And I know that those are like a year away from now. If you want to wait, and you could use a free option and then upgrade as you go along. So
Scrivener has a student discount as well.
They do. I'm just no longer a student, so I can't, you know. Right.
I'm 7
No.
and I got the discount.
There you go. So, but yeah, most writers I know use either Scrivener or Word. I tend to use Word, and it's based off of how I just write and visualize things in my head. But once you've written your book, you need to edit it. Editing is very important, more so I would say for someone who's pursuing the self-publishing path and going the traditional path. If you're going the traditional path, you have an editor who is going to be editing your novel. You have to do all the work yourself if you're self-publishing. So the Shoestring option for free, once again, join critique groups. Oak Park Library actually has one that meets, it's monthly now?
Yes, it's been second Friday of every month. It's virtual.
Yeah. Virtual. Yeah. So, and then there's also, you can find critique partners. So if you're part of a writer's group, you could just make friends through there and you're passing novels back and forth. The other thing is your word processing tools, like Word has spell check built into it. And then there are free versions of editing software. So Grammarly and AutoCrit and Pro Writing Aid do have free versions that you can use. And they will help you from a grammar standpoint, in some case from a dictation and readability standpoint. And that's where it comes into a more balanced option if you want to pay for these tools. Pro Writing Aid Premium is about $30 a month, $120 a year, or $40 for life. I lucked out. I bought a life version of Premium a few years ago for $150. So the price has been jumping. But once again, this is a situation where you need to think long term. If you're going to be writing and using these tools for years, it might be worth it, but feel free to just do a sample. And some writing softwares like the pro version of Noveler will include these tools. So do your research. Grammarly Pro is $30 a month or $144 a year. I will say in my own process, I actually use both tools. I use Pro Writing Aid, the paid version, and then I use the free version of Grammarly. You could also pay for a content editor. This is where you start to see the money really increasing in terms of self-publishing. Editing is where you could toss a lot of money at your book. If you're looking for a content editor, especially a cheap content editor, that's going to be about $200 to $500. A content editor is someone who is going to read your novel and look for plot holes. Is your motivation consistent throughout your entire book for your characters? Is there a world building issue? Is there something that you foreshadowed up front that you didn't have a conclusion for? That's what a content editor will help you with. And then if you have more money, you could hire many editors, which would be a content editor, and then you also have a copy editor. A copy editor is the person who's going to go, they're sometimes known as a line editor, line by line through your manuscript, saying, this doesn't make sense, please research this. I actually think that this is a proper name and should be capitalized. Here's maybe where you can reduce your sentence count. Grammar, check by check by check. Proofreader is the person who is looking at your formatted e-file saying, okay, I think you can send this to a printer now and you don't have to worry about orphans or trailing words or weird index. They all cost money. When you're talking about a pro option, you're looking at someone who might be charging a penny a word. But if your book is 100,000 words, that adds up a lot. So many people who are doing the self-publishing, what they tend to do is they develop a group of critique partners, your friends, your fellow authors that you're doing these swaps with, as well as the pro editing tools that are helping you with grammar and dictation. Once again, you could also find deals for these tools, but here's an example of what Pro Writing Aid does. So I'm going to just put it here. So you can have summary things. So overused are your phrases that I'm using really frequently within my document that I don't want to. Is something trite? Is a cliche? Is there a thesaurus? Am I using the same word over and over again? Repeats and echoes will actually really help me do that. They're saying, okay, within 3 paragraphs, use the word hands 5 times. Do I want to think of saying something else? Especially like if I'm doing a scene about someone who's like a craftsman and I'm mentioning hands all the time, like that can get very repetitive. This will help me find that out. When I'm thinking about structure, it's going to tell me how long are my sentences, what type of transitions do I have, and or but. something that's considered good writing craft is a variability of sentence structure. You don't want long sentences all the time, and you don't want short sentences all the time. What I use a lot are these readability ones. So readability is actually gives you, they tend like a Fleshman reading score. So I tend to write for both adults and children. So a readability score will tell me this is an 8th grade reading level. This is a 12th grade reading level. So I need to know that if I'm writing for, for middle grade students, they're not going to be able to read at a 12th grade level. So it's nice for me to be able to switch back and forth. Sticky, well, actually that's what you'll see sometimes highlighted is these really long sentences with a lot of prepositions and connecting words. And so they're sentences that are hard for people to process. Can we make this a simpler sentence? That's what sticky means, and I'll just show you. And I'll actually, Pro Writing Aid is smart enough now because it's incorporated AI. It will give you, here are 3 examples of how to rewrite the sentence. And you could just click it and it'll update it in your document. It's kind of cool. So dictation, so that's, you can see here like these red lines. So space caliber, is that really what I want to do? Well, she knew the structure was a training capsule. Do I want to use was, or do I want to use a more active verb? These are the things that Pro Writing Aid is giving me. So I thought it was worth the money to invest in this, especially back when I bought it. It was half the price it is now. But please feel free to like use a free trial of it. I will admit, the longer your story, the longer it takes to process. So if I'm doing a short story, I'll have the whole thing go through the system. If it's a novel, I'll break it up and have each chapter in a different document and then run the program. So questions on the tools to actually write?
Helpful. Very helpful.
I'm glad. Okay, so this is the part that a lot of people have trouble with, is actually getting your book ready for submission to publishers or printers, as we would call them. Step 1 is you need a cover. Yep.
C Bean says, can these tools be used for poetry or flash fiction?
Yes. So I will admit, like, I'm not really a novelist. I have a copy of one of my books here. It's teeny tiny. Like, look at that. I'm a short story writer. So I use this all the time for flash fiction.
Oh yeah, to show it.
Oh, you showing? Oh, I thought we were passing it around.
The camera's on this laptop.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, you can pass it around. So I write a lot of flash fiction and short fiction, and I use this all the time. I will say it's a little harder for poetry because poetry doesn't always follow grammar rules intentionally. And so a lot of editing software doesn't pick up on that. No questions?
Cool, thank you so much.
Yep. So when you want to get your book ready to publish, you need a cover, obviously. The free options are Canva, BookBrush, and KDP. So Canva is an online graphic design program that you can use. This book that's going around, I created that cover in Canva. So that's an example of what you can do. I also created these 2 covers in Canva. So this is what you could do with that program. I will admit that I pay for the pro version of Canva, which is like $13 a month. Is that right? I can't remember. 15 a month now. But what you get with the pro version is advanced editing, and then you get licensing rights for the images. Because that tends to be a thing that you have to worry about. Not every image that you're going to find online you could actually use in a commercial product. BookBrush is very similar to Canva. It was designed specifically for authors. Canva is a lot more wider, so you'll find like social media managers will use it a lot as well. KDP stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. So this is actually Amazon's publishing house. Amazon itself has like a tool when you're going to set up your book where you can develop what type of cover you want. It's not as pretty and it's a lot more limited than what the graphic design programs.
You said Amazon?
Yeah, KDP is Amazon.
Oh.
Yep. So, so if you want to go for a more balanced option, you could pay for the pro versions of Canva or BookBrush. You could also pay for someone to, you could do a pre-made cover. So what that means is artists will actually say, hey, look at this book cover that I made. They didn't make it for a specific book, so it's just out there and you could buy the rights to use it for your products. They're cheaper because they're not custom made. They're already out there. The artist already said, here you go. If you want to pay someone to create a cover custom to you, that can be really expensive, $350. I once decided that I wanted to quote someone that that small little ghost one, that's my middle grade novel. So it's for kids. Yeah, it's really tiny because I specifically wrote it for kids who are in middle school who don't like to read. So it's better if they have like a simpler book, simpler words, but then it's still older characters for them. But that's not like the style. So I'm like, okay, well, how much would it cost for me to have like a professional artist illustrate a cover in the style that it is right now? It was over $1,000. I can't afford that. I will be blunt.
Right.
So I will just continue to use Canva Pro.
What about using some of those online options like Fiverr or Upwork?
Yes, so that's where you can do, that's where you find a lot of pre-made covers.
Okay.
You can also on Fiverr find custom cover editors, but then you're still probably looking at a couple hundred. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, I got that one from here.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry. All right. So, and then from a business standpoint, I did want to say covers are where you should start to invest. In many cases, the cover is what people see first. It's what gets the attention of everyone who's trying to buy your book. This is harder for people to do on their own than editing, I would say. Editing, you have a lot of tools to help you. You have your friends to help you. For cover designing, you have to have the skills of a graphic designer, you have to understand these tools. So if you're trying to figure out, I only have so much money to invest, where should I put it? It might be towards a pre-made cover versus an editing tool. Once again, examples of covers. So Sadelle's Ghost Hunt, Tomorrow and Beyond, and Fate Dreams. These are all covers that I made in Canva. Yep.
Bean says pre-made covers include the category of one's own artwork as well, say photography or exhibited collage, etc.
Sometimes I will say this one here at the end, Shores and Fall, that's my own photo. So I just took my own photo and I turned it into the cover of a travel log that I published this past fall. So pre-made covers is when you're hiring someone or buying a cover that someone made. I did want to give a shout out to Tomorrow and Beyond. I created this cover with the assistance of AI. So what you need to know about AI is I created this cover years ago. This is my first or second book that I published. So it used not the generative AI that you see nowadays. So the stuff you can make now is a little different than what this is. It is legally allowed for you to use AI to create your covers. There are some guidelines. Please don't use very specific names when you're doing your prompt into there. Make sure you don't have recognizable figures and try to adjust the AI image. Tinker with the colors, add your own text. That way it's obvious that this is not something you just took from the AI and put into your cover. You want to make sure that there's a human element to it. Otherwise, you cannot copyright it. Anything that is generated by AI is not copyrightable because there's no human involvement, there's no thought. That's just the nature of law as it is right now. I would also say for Amazon, anytime that you're using AI in a huge way for your books, be it cover design, be it if it wrote part of your novel, you have to let Amazon know. And it's starting to flag and categorize this as an FYI. All right, next thing to know, ISBNs. How many here are familiar with the idea of SKUs? SKUs? Yeah, okay, so, yep. So ISBNs are SKUs for books. There is only one place in the world where you can buy them, or in the US anyways, because they're federally regulated, and that is from Bowker. This company, Booker, I'm not entirely sure. So that's the only place where you can buy them. Every version of your book needs a unique ISBN. Your hardcover, your paperback, your ebook, your audiobook, they all need a unique ISBN. You can get them for free from the publisher. That might cause problems if you're going to go wide. I say that because it depends on what you decide to do from your author business standpoint. Some people just want to publish on Amazon because that is the big, horse in the room. This is where most of the sales are going to come from. I just want to publish through Amazon. And then most publishers in that case will actually give you an ISBN for free. Like, hey, you're publishing with me. Here you go. Have an ISBN. But then that ISBN is tied forever to Amazon. You cannot use it anyplace else. So if you want to publish wide and say, have your book on both Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Kobo, or maybe in the library systems, you need to have one unique ISBN that ties all of them together. Some people go and say, I'm going to have 2 ISBNs for the same book. So I'm going to have an ISBN for the things I publish through Amazon. And if I want to publish in other places, I'll just buy an ISBN for that. That is a way to do it, but then you can't tie them in the back end. And so what's really nice is if you have your own ISBN, like Barnes and Noble will take reviews maybe from Amazon, or they'll take reviews from Goodreads, because they're having that data in the back end where they can connect it. Oh, it's the same book. So you can get ISBNs for free from the publisher or distributor that you choose to go through. But if you're going wide and you're going to have your book for sale in multiple places, it's probably best to buy your own. They get expensive fast. And so this is something that you need to consider as your author business strategy. What might you want to do? It's $300 for 10 of them. And remember, you need a unique ISBN per version. So for my books, like we passed around the paperback, I also have ebooks of them. So that's 2 ISBNs right there. Yeah, right? But if you buy a bulk, so if you buy 100 of them, it's less than 600. Right? So it scales really cheaply, which is why the publishers will essentially give them away for free. They are buying them in such bulk qualities, it's pennies. So things for you to consider, but you have to have an ISBN. That's a must if you're publishing.
But your shoestring tip says if you're only doing an ebook.
Yep. So that's because a lot of times if you're only selling ebooks, most sales are going to come from Amazon, right? So, and if you are, the other thing you could do is there is an online distributor. It's called Draft to Digital. I'll talk more about them later. But if you publish through Draft to Digital, it will actually distribute to Amazon. So then you can just use Draft to Digital. Yeah. All right, so 2 or 5 at this point, know your metadata. So I mentioned before that ISBNs is what's going to help link all your same book, so everyone knows it's the same book in all your systems. That's part of your metadata. So the metadata is what's behind your book that tells everyone this is what it is. This is how people are searching for your books on Amazon. This is how Amazon is categorizing it, Barnes & Noble, Target, Hoopla, whatever it may be. So at the basics, what it's going to be is you need to know like the author name, the title of the book, the subject matter, the summary, the publisher, the price, your ISBN. Where this information comes from is most likely going to be your own brain. So what you're thinking of, you can do some free options, such as the platform options. If you're publishing on Draft to Digital or KDP, so Amazon, they'll actually give you some suggestions. Maybe try these categories. You could also use SEO tools. So SEO tools will help you figure out what is popular right now. So if you want to say, I want to call my book a romance, well, maybe you want a subgenre. What's the popular subgenre right now? A paranormal romance or a comedy romance. So SEO tools can help you with that. Google Trends is a good one, search engines or storefronts. So if you go to Amazon and if you start typing in romance, it'll drop down very popular trailing long-term keywords for that. And you could use that to kind of help figure out your book's metadata. You could buy software to help you do this. Publisher Rocket is really the industry standard, the industry golden child, I would say. I personally don't like it. I tried it and I ended up returning it. It's because I didn't like the interface. Some people though really like it. So Publisher Rocket, it's $97 for life. And what it will do is it'll actually download, it's Amazon only, all of the different categories that Amazon will sell books in. They'll tell you how hard it is to actually be a bestseller in here. What's the potential profit rate? So people who are really writing a lot, saying this is going to be my business, Publisher Rocket is what they swear by. I don't write that fast. Writing for me is never going to replace my 9-to-5 income. I know that. So this is also a tool that wasn't super useful for me, as well as I didn't like the interface. I'm just going to write what I want to write. So, and then, you okay there? Sorry. Okay. And then for the time is money option, you're always welcome to hire an SEO specialist, someone who can help you figure out, okay, what should my title be? What should my summary be? What should my categories be? I will say at the very, you do want to do basic SEO. I was part of a book project once where we wanted to title the book of 3. And then when we searched it in Amazon, our book would not have showed up because it was such a common title as well as the name of a music album. So then we had to figure out a new title. So basic things like that, please do. You can also do things like PickFu. PickFu is a kind of A/B tester. So what ends up happening is for $50 minimum a poll, it can scale pretty quickly. You can survey a bunch of people and say, here are 2 covers. Which one do you think is better? Or here are 2 different summaries of my book. Which one do you think is better? And then you can use that to put into your metadata. Okay, this is going to be my cover. This is going to be my summary. All of your metadata, I will say, is editable. So even once you have your book published, you could always go back and change it, except for your ISBN and title and author, I would hope. And for your tip, the right metadata can organically get you sales. People will frequently, like one of my books is a romance set in Chicago. So if I have that in my metadata, this is a romance set in Chicago, people who are searching that online, my book is organically going to show up in those results. All right, now how to format your book. So like I said, this is usually what trips people up because this is new, right? There's a lot of resources out there to help you write. How do you actually get your book ready to be in stores? So for an ebook version, there's a few places that do it. One is Draft to Digital. I mentioned this before. Draft to Digital is an aggregator. So what that means is if they will both print and distribute your ebook. Once you upload your files, you could choose where do you want it to go. They have partnerships with British stores, with Australian stores, with American stores. Through Draft to Digital, you can actually have your book show up in KDP, aka Amazon, or Kobo, or Barnes and Noble. Draft to Digital will also get your books into library programs like Hoopla, Libby, Overdrive. That's the other one.
Libby and Overdrive are the same.
Yeah, I feel like they're gonna like this one app is gonna disappear eventually. Yeah. So those are they cost you zero money to do, right? You just upload your files and off you go. There is some tinkering that you need to do, make sure that your files are correct. So every new chapter should be a brand new heading, for example, and that's how they realize, okay, this is my chapter break. But then you could go ahead and tinker and do everything that you want in these systems. I really like using Draft to Digital. It has the broadest distribution. If you're putting it up to KDP, KDP does have that extended distribution, but then they take it out of your royalties. And then Kobo Writing Life, it's only them. Barnes and Noble, it's only them. Draft to Digital will do everything. Draft to Digital will also automatically create a cover page for you. It will automatically create a copyright page for you. And it will automatically create a other books by page for you. And it smartly updates it. So what I mean by that is if you publish your first book through Draft to Digital, it'll be like other books by, author. Well, it'll only be the one title. But if you publish more books through Draft to Digital knows that. And so if someone buys a new copy of book 1, your other 3 titles will be there now. So it's very smart and will update your files, which I really like. And again, it'll distribute to all of these other platforms for you. Balanced option is Vellum is expensive. It's $250 for life. It only works on Mac. The benefit of Vellum and also Atticus, which is a cheaper version, which will work on all desktop or laptop versions, is it will give you more formatting options. If you are uploading your book to Draft to Digital, KDP, you are stuck with the templates that they provide you. Vellum and Atticus will let you do like custom headers. They will let you do a format like in the little chat text bubbles if you want in a paperback. So it gives you a lot more customized options. Many cases, you don't really need it for an ebook, I would argue, because ebooks are meant to be flexible. You have to make sure that if people are going to increase the size of their Kindle, your book's text flows, so you can't have a lot of strict programming anyways. You could always pay someone to format your ebook if you don't want to do it yourself, but it is pretty easy. If once I have my Word document in the correct order, it takes me 30 minutes to upload it to Draft to Digital, go through all the process. Here's my template. Here's, okay, my copyright page is correct. All my chapters are correct. Here's all the places where I want to publish it. Here's my pricing, boom, 30, 40 minutes, I'm done. So it can go pretty fast, but you have to make sure that your Word document is correct, which is really just your headers are good. You have your table of contents there if you want. I tend to use my own copyright page because I have an anti-piracy line that doesn't crop up in Draft to Digital's, but it's really not that difficult to do. I will say formats can be downloaded and shared with other publishers. That's why I have Reedsy on here. Reedsy isn't actually a printer distributor. They are a community, so that's where you can find people for hire. You mentioned like Fiverr, Reedsy would be another place for that. It's very author specific, but they also have tools. So you can upload your manuscript, spit out a file that you can then upload to Draft Digital or KDP. This is what Draft Digital looks like. So this is my file that I uploaded, and then you can see like the book is floating around here. So this is, I used a similar thing for, actually, can I see the inside of that?
Yeah, thank you.
So you can see it's a little different actually, because the paperback is what I did in Ingram Spark. This is what I did in Draft Digital. Draft Digital I only used for digital, but I was able to have like a little design there, which I think is cute. And that's based off of these templates that you have here. So Draft Digital gives you different templates. Different templates will have different styles for your chapters. Your breaks will look different. You could choose what type of caps you want. I have the phrase cap on, so this entire thing is going to be capitalized. You could do a drop cap, you could do none. Once again, like there's only like 10 templates. There'd be more if you're using the tool.
I could quite hear you. How do you pick the type?
By the theme.
I don't see anything that says I pick the type, but okay.
Oh no, like classic mystery, a clue. These are all themes. They change.
Okay.
The type is built into the theme.
Yeah.
So you don't get
You don't-
micro choices here, you get big choices. And it just sort of gives you a whole package all at once.
Yeah.
Oh, what if you are doing like a photographic, like an artist, maybe examples of different works, and you have a lot of photographs with captions underneath the photographs? Can you
Yeah.
format that in E2D?
No, at that point, you're really going to want to have either your own the formatting tool, so Vellum or Atticus, or honestly Paper Pro. That is tricky stuff. The other thing that you're going to need to be aware of is, especially for Amazon and Draft Digital, I'm not as familiar with the practices for this. Amazon will charge you for the size of the file type. So the more images you have, the bigger the file, and the more Amazon is going to charge you to deliver the book. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so, because then you could do either Kindle ebook, or you can do print on demand, hard copy.
Yes.
Soft.
And that's actually what I'm toying about doing myself. As I mentioned before, I have a travelogue. There's no photos in my travelogue, but I think the paperback version, when I finally get that formatted, would be glossy with photographs, because
Right.
then I don't have to worry about the fees. So
You
online
charge
question?
more for
Yes.
Mhm.
Online question from Jeff. What is Ingram Spark for the print version?
That's the next two slides.
Next two slides.
Any other questions about the digital side of things? Nope. All right, cool. So how to format your book for the print version. There are two big options for this as well: Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, as well as Ingram Spark. So Ingram Spark is kind of the print version of Draft Digital. It will get it everywhere. If you want your books to be in indie bookstores, Ingram Spark is the way to do it. That doesn't mean that they're going to stock the book actually on their shelves. So like if you guys go down the street to Book Table, you will not find my books on the shelf, but you will find my books in their online catalog. So you could search my name, buy it, and it'll be print on demand, and then you can pick it up from the store. That's because I went through Ingram Spark. Amazon will not do that. Or if they do, your profit margins cut so deep, it doesn't matter anymore. So Ingram Spark is also the warehouse that a lot of the libraries will purchase from. Ingram Spark will, like Draft Digital, distribute to Amazon. Kindle, but you can also print directly through KDP. They are both free to use, free to upload your files and see what they look like. I find that Ingram Spark has a much easier interface. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I went about trying to have both a KDP and an IS version of a paperback. KDP thought there was only 50 pages, and IS was like, no, there's actually 100 here. So I actually used the IS file, uploaded it to KDP, and then they're like, okay. So because they couldn't figure out my Word document, it's just not as intuitive. That said, there are other options. So Book Vault is another printer distributor. A lot of people who decide to sell direct on their own websites will use Book Vault. They have an integration with Shopify. So if you have, once you get to that part of your business, I don't know if any one of you are, like a lot of authors tend to use that because they do give good margins for authors, but setting it up and actually having an e-com store on your website takes a lot of upfront capital. So make sure it's for you. You have to pay a fee to have that on your website. You have to have a fee in order to all the partners that you're using, and it's at least a couple hundred. So if you're not selling enough books to generate the expense to cover that, you got to pick your trade-offs here. Vellum and Atticus I mentioned before, they are really good tools for formatting paperbacks. So Jeff, when you said like an artist book, you're probably going to want one of these. Or if you want like a really pretty like map or custom swords, if you're doing a fantasy or romantasy is big right now, you probably want to use one of those formatting tools. Or of course, pay for someone to do it. Oh, sorry, you can ignore this tip. Ingram Spark used to actually charge you to use them. They don't anymore. That changed in the past few months, right? So,
Wow.
any questions for online? Okay, I know someone was interested in Ingram. So what happens is when you're going through the Ingram process, they will then give you digital e-proofs. So they send them to you as PDFs, and this is where you would work as a proofreader and make sure everything is fine. So here you can see the dimensions of my book. And then here is what the PowerPoint or the PDF looks like. So this is the title page. And then I go through page by page how it's going to look like when it's printed. And I'm usually looking for things like orphans. So I don't want a line where there's just one word or two words. So I may want to adjust the text to fix that. And then making sure that everything looks correctly, all my back matter, my front matter, the chapters are titled correctly. And then I say yes to Ingram, and then suddenly people can buy it. Yay. Another benefit of Ingram over Amazon is Ingram allows you to do pre-orders. KDP will not. So you could set up your book via Ingram and then say, okay, I don't want this to be available for purchase, or I don't want it to come out for another month. And then you could do a pre-order campaign, even on Amazon, because Ingram will serve Amazon. But if you're publishing through KDP on Amazon only, it's immediate. So they're like, okay, as soon as the files are approved, it's for sale, but then you can't like build a marketing campaign around it. So. All right, this is a breakout of the different distributors. It looks a little cut off on the version that I could see there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can see everything here that I see on the main
Yes,
screen.
yeah, it's just a really long table, so there's nothing under Ingram Spark.
Okay, then everything is here.
Okay, cool. So these are, like I said, the main distributors about where you might want to think about putting your book. Yes.
This is actually a question for me.
Okay.
Can I view this presentation again? Also, would you consider scheduling a workshop, actually going through the steps with the participants actually publishing their books? You can view this presentation again. We are recording it and we will put it back up on the Oak Park Public Library YouTube channel. I think we get it for a year, is what you said. So it'll be up for a year.
You will also get the slides that will, those will be
Yes, and
sent
after
out.
this, if you want the slides, I'll send it to everybody who's virtual, and then anyone in person who wants them, please check in with me so I get your email and we'll send it out. I would love to schedule one with more information.
We could chat later, yeah.
That's a different conversation.
Probably.
Yeah. I will take it under advisement.
So, but like I do understand, like there are some benefits to seeing the process being done. So, but these are the main distributors that most people use, and I can talk about my experiences with them as well. Drafted Digital, I mentioned before, you can actually do both ebooks and print with them. Most people will just use them for ebooks. For printing, they're using Ingram anyways, so why not just go straight to Ingram Spark? That's kind of the idea there. And then if you cut Drafted Digital out of the Ingram piece of it, then you get a slightly higher royalty. So it's free to use it. Your royalties when you're going through Ingram are going to be 60% of the book's price goes to you. For print, it's 45. And it's for a distribution standpoint, like I said, it's an aggregate. So I'll do for all of these different retail sites, as well as the apps like Hoopla and Overdrive and Libby. Can you advertise through them? Yes. Draft to Digital also recently bought Smashwords, which is a pretty big ebook only retailer. And so they will actually, like a few times a year, have special sales on Smashwords. And you could say, yes, I want my book to be part of this promotion period. And then usually you could choose, okay, is it going to be a 25% discount, a 50% discount? But I've always actually found that I generate sales from these sales. And that's no cost for you to join. You just get a loyal royalty because the price of your book dropped. KDP, so also free. This is Amazon ebook, paperback, and hardback are things that you could do here. Royalties depends. So to kind of explain this, if your book is priced under $2.99, your only royalty option is 35%. That's why you'll see a lot of books probably start being priced at $2.99 because that's when authors start to get more money from them. And that's an Amazon choice. Pros and cons about that. The other thing comes down to KDU enrollment. KDU, or KU, sorry, is Kindle Unlimited. So that is Amazon's reader subscription service. If your book is in KU, it cannot be anyplace else. You cannot sell it on Barnes & Noble. You cannot sell it on Kobo. You cannot have it in the library systems. And what ends up happening is you actually get paid per page read. So the idea is that anyone who has a KU subscription, they're like, okay, I can only get this book here. I want to read it. I'm going to read 300 pages, but Amazon determines how much those pages are worth. And the worth of that page changes every month. So it's a different type of business strategy. Books that tend to do really well in KU are like mysteries and romances and some thrillers, books with really long series and very avid, quick readers. That tends to be good there. And the business strategy is the more books you have, then the more opportunities you have for page reads. Not everyone can write at that speed. Yeah.
What about nonfiction? What would you recommend for nonfiction?
I would not do KU for nonfiction.
Huh?
No.
No?
Correct. So I would just have it in the regular system instead of KU.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you don't have it in KU, you could go wide. And then once again, if your book is priced $2.99 or above, you get 70% royalty rate. Note, if you do direct through Amazon, you get a 70% royalty rate in your ebook. If you go through Draft to Digital, you only get a 60%. Sometimes people say, I can eat the difference. So like if my book is priced at $2.99, it's a difference of like 20 cents. Is it worth that? Are you leaving? Okay.
I got it the men's room.
No, all this her.
Oh, okay.
So 20 cents, I don't care. Like I'm okay if I just have my book on Draft to Digital and then I only have one place to manage. I only have to worry about pricing on Draft to Digital or promotions or the metadata or updates to the files in one place instead of two, because I don't think the extra 20 cents I make a book is worth it. I don't have that volume for that particular title. You can make that choice as a whole career or per title, whether you want to have it go through two systems or just through one, like Draft to Digital, which is the most broad.
Online question.
Mhm.
How do any of these tools in self-publishing affect copyrights and or royalties? I'm not sure if I understand copyright arrangement totally, meaning I was under the impression a literary agent plus wide distribution equals a contract that outlines the original author's copyrights and royalties. Insight is helpful because I don't fully understand copyrights and royalties.
Let me finish going through this chart and then I'll answer that question.
Okay, upcoming.
So that's why some people will have both through Amazon and Draft to Digital. Sometimes people will just do Draft to Digital. But that's once again, you come into the play, do you want one or two ISBNs? If you want one ISBN across both, then you have to pay for it. If you're okay having the two ISBNs and not having those books connect in the back end, you could just use the free one from Amazon and Draft to Digital. Amazon like also does paperback and hardback. Amazon will distribute paperbacks expanded. So if it's just KDP, so that means the paperback is only for sale on Amazon, you get 60% of the profits. If you do expanded distribution, you get 40% of the profits. So you're paying for that, right? I see you just shaking your head. They're like, you're not in this game to make money. It's really hard.
Wow, let's see.
And keep in mind, this is revenue, that's not actually profit. So if you're selling your book for $10, well, Amazon is gonna give you, then there's $6 for you, right? But that doesn't include how much it costs to actually print it. That printing cost is coming out of your
Wow.
60%. So, and then any marketing costs you might incur on top of that. But Amazon, if you are in KU, to go back to that, you actually get free promotion abilities. So if your book is in KU, you can have free days, you can have discount days that are offered to you at no cost. You do not have that opportunity at all if you are not in KU. If you're not in KU, that's also considered going wide because you're publishing in more than one spot. Kobo is sometimes if you have the sales volume for it, people might be in both Draft Digital and Kobo because you get that extra 10% for ebook. Kobo is an online retailer. They also have their own reader subscription service. However, unlike KU, it is not exclusive. So you can be in Kobo's reader service as well as, you know, the library systems or available broadly. It's free to use. It's its own store. It's on IndieBound. So if someone's looking for indie books, they can find the Kobo. And they also have deals that you could be a part of. Some deals you have to pay for, like if you want to be a featured book of the week. Some deals, it's just your book is discounted, so your royalty is going to be less. Ingram Spark down here is ebook, paperback, hardback. It's free to set up now. It used to be $50. Most people don't use Ingram for ebooks. They just use it for paperback and hardback. Ebooks, the max is 60%. Oh, and I guess this is a situation where that got cut off for paperback. It's a little nuance anyways. I'll talk that through. Ingram is where you get into indie stores and libraries. So that's where that comes through. That's why it's a really popular option. You can do advertising through them, which is a catalog. So if you guys like remember like the old Scholastic catalogs that you might get for school book fairs,
Yeah.
Ingram actually has them for bookstores and libraries. You have to pay to be in it, but it is an option. Now, how Ingram works from a print standpoint is I mentioned before, like there's all the little bitty price cuts. So Ingram is a distributor. So they print the books on demand and then they sell them to the stores. So the store comes to Ingram and says, hey, I want to buy this book. Is there a discount because I'm a retailer versus a consumer? And I get to choose as the author what that discount is that I want to offer stores. At minimum, I have to give them a 40% discount though. I have no other choice. So if I am selling a book for $10, I automatically have to give all stores a 40% discount. So then they're already paying $6 for it. So then I have to again eat the printing costs. But then any amount of money that they're making on top of that, they could buy the book for $6, sell it for $10, and pocket $4. And that's less money than what I'm going to make because I have to eat the printing costs. So in that case, like there's really no better option than Ingram. Otherwise, you could go through KDP, but it's, you know, already sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not, because then you can't get into the indie stores. You're really limited to only be on Amazon sale, Amazon sales channels. A lot of people will do both. They'll have a version on KDP and they'll have a version on Ingram. This is tricky to set up, I will say though, because their systems don't always talk. So if you set up your book in Ingram and then try to set it up in Amazon, Amazon will throw a hissy fit because it recognizes that the ISBN is already in use. So you have to actually build them simultaneously, right? So that's like setup. That's not what you should do for your first book. For your first book, use Ingram. And then maybe if you're seeing that Amazon is a high enough sales channel for you, invest in your next book learning how to do it simultaneously. But you can take Ingram's files, upload them to KDP, and that will help you.
I have a question.
There was a question about how this works with traditional publishing, right?
Yes, so also, so Ricardo, hold on.
Yes, thank you.
Bean's question about how do these tools in self-publishing affect copyrights and or royalties?
Okay, so royalties is this column here. Royalties is essentially how much of the sale goes into your pocket. That's what a royalty is. Your royalty is always going to be higher with self-publishing because there's less people in the middle. So for Draft to Digital, that extra 30% is going to 1, Draft to Digital, and 2, the store. So like Amazon's taking a cut, Barnes & Noble's taking a cut, Draft to Digital, and then you, the author, get the rest. If you're going through a traditional publisher, yeah, they might have some extra scale, but what ends up happening is that publisher is another person getting a cut. And so that's what happened when I went through a small press. If you're going through a big press and then you actually have a literary agent, that agent also takes a cut. So it's not uncommon for if you're going, so like one of my books actually came out with a small press. My ebook return on that is only 40%. So it drops dramatically. So when you're working with a literary agent, there's just more people taking the cut, but there's more people putting money into your book. You don't have to pay for your own cover. You don't have to pay for your own editor. You don't have to put your own, nowadays you do have to do your own marketing spend, unless they decide you're going to be the darling of the year. And there's really only 5 or 6 books that they choose to be the darling. So copyright is a whole different thing. The way that copyright law works is as soon as you write down a story, it's yours. You don't even have to publish it. That copyright is yours. However, when you're working with any of these companies or literary agency, what you're doing is you're entering into a licensing agreement. So when I'm going through this and I'm checking all the boxes at KDP and Draft to Digital, what I'm saying is I'm giving Draft to Digital the rights to distribute this book. The copyright is mine. They just have the rights to distribute it and make some money off of it. When you're working with a literary agent, it's the same thing. You're giving them the rights to print and distribute a book, but it costs you more to give the rights to them than it does to go directly to Draft to Digital. I will also say some literary imprints are now just using Ingram Spark, because the way that our book industry is set up is it's mass producing all of these books and then maybe not be selling. And then the author tends to have to eat that cost, or the publishing house in terms of a traditional publisher. So for example, what's happening here, like Ingram Spark, let's say a small indie bookstore really likes the sound of my books, so they buy 10 of them and see if they could sell them. If they only sell 5 of them, what happens to those other 5? I still have to eat the cost for them. And if they decide to mail them back to me, I have to pay the cost of the shipping. So I usually on Ingram, I can actually say, if you don't sell it, what to do with them. So I usually just say destroy them, but I still have to pay for that. What happens in a traditional deal is the person who is eating those costs is going to be your publisher. But they're also printing 1,000 books at a time instead of just 10.
Okay,
Yes.
Ricardo, what is the question?
2 questions. Apologies, I missed the definition of KU. What does that stand for?
What does KU stand for?
Kindle Unlimited. That is Amazon subscription reader service.
Understood. Also, my other question is this: who determines the price of a book? How does that establish?
Who determines the price of a book? How is
The
it
author.
established? The author.
Yeah, so you get to choose how much you want to charge for your book. You could also choose how much you want to charge for it in different countries. So when you're going through the setup for any of these, like I'll say, okay, what do you want your price to be in the United States? What do you want the price to be in Australia? What do you want it to be in Japan? You do all of that yourself.
What's the criteria? Obviously, it has to
I saw
be
you into the back
arbitrary,
row.
can it?
No, okay.
Sorry,
there
say it again,
range?
Ricardo.
What's the criteria? Is there a certain range that you begin with, or just arbitrary, or how's that?
What's the criteria for setting a price? Is it arbitrary, or is there a range?
So it depends on the country and the person that you're selling through. Amazon will not let you set a price lower than 99 cents.
Okay.
Kobo and Draft to Digital will actually allow you to have a book for free, which is a marketing strategy that some people will do, especially if they have like a series of 7 mystery books. They might be like, oh, okay, I'll set the first book as free as a freebie, and then hoping that people will buy the rest of the service. You just can't do that on Amazon. Amazon has a minimum threshold because they charge you for everything. Like I mentioned before, they charge you a fee for delivering the Kindle file. Draft to Digital, to my knowledge, I don't know if they do that, but it could just be hidden in the 40% that they take out because they have separate agreements with all of their individual retail distributors. So Amazon will have minimum costs. The one that I usually bump into is like with Mexico. Like sometimes my own personal strategy is I'm okay taking a more of a loss and less of a profit if books sold abroad, if it helps get my books in more hands, because I know most of my sales are going to be in the States anyway. So why not offer that to them? But I can't set a price lower than 35 Mexican dollars. And I don't know why, but that's Amazon's limit.
I have a funny anecdotal story.
Sure.
One of my coworkers here, who's also a self-published author, recently went viral in Mexico with his book. And so
It happens.
Don't ignore those opportunities.
No, and I'm okay seeking those out too, because if I also see that there's a good demand for one of my books in English, then maybe that's a sign that I should pay for someone to translate it. Like for Sidell, my middle grade book, like one of the first pre-orders I got for that was actually someone in Mexico. It's like, this is in rural Wisconsin, but okay. So you never kind of know, and I'm okay taking less of a profit, but still some profit, you know. But if it's a difference of $1 versus 80 cents for me to have more people maybe buy it in Mexico, that's fine. I also find that usually what ends up happening is you have problems with exchange rates. So just because like $1 in the States might translate to $20 in a different country, $20 might actually be really unaffordable for someone who lives there. So that's why I'm also usually lowering that price. But that is something that I have control over in all of these systems. Questions? No? Okay.
Sabine says, that was awesome info regarding copyrights, royalties, and distributors.
It can be complicated, I know. So the next step obviously is market your book if you want to. I don't have a whole lot here. So your shoestring option is just going to be social media. Please don't go wild and join every single social media channel out there. Pick one. Each social media has its own unique culture, and so you really have to learn that culture and then integrate with that. You could do e-ARCs. So what this is they're PDF versions of ARCs. ARCs are advanced reader copies. Booksprout and Book Sirens are where you have a free option of, okay, here's a book, and they will choose some, like a street team for you. They'll send it out to 5 people, and in return, they will leave you a review of your book. They don't always do it. I've tried to do it in the past. I will admit it hasn't really worked. People have taken the ARCs and they have not left reviews. So, hit or miss there. Interviews, I like to do podcasts actually. So I've been in a few podcasts now, and so then that's me having other people to talk to. Panels is something else that I'm starting to get into because it's often something that I'm volunteering to do for free. If any of you know Capricorn, that's going to be the science fiction and fantasy convention first weekend of October downtown. I'm actually going to be a panelist there. So, thank you. But it's one of those things where like it's more awareness building for me that I don't have to pay for. Well, I'm paying for the con ticket, but you know. Balanced option is if you have some money and you want to start to pay ads. So display ads these are the ads that pop up on the different websites. Amazon and Barnes & Noble have their own ad services. So Amazon ads tend to work like search ads. So when you're searching like, again, like romance in Chicago, then some of the books that will show up will be organic. Some will be things that people have paid to put in front of you. That's kind of why I mentioned before when, can't remember what his name was, when he asked about nonfiction. Nonfiction is pretty easy to advertise this way. You have to figure out how much you want to spend on it. But there's so many keywords that are going to be direct towards this is a problem that someone might have that your nonfiction is going to solve for it. I can bid on these keywords, and it's a little easier to find people that way than just say like rom-com. There are so many. But you can also do ads on Facebook and Instagram, and Goodreads, which is kind of like social media for authors, also has an ad option. Time is money. You can spend for professional people to do this for you. You could run your Amazon ads, or you could have someone run it on your behalf. Very easy. And then there's these larger promotions. So BookBub is a kind of, again, reader social media / email blast type of website. It's just another internet site that you can run some ads on. They will also have promotions. NetGalley is where you have to pay to be in it, but then that's a website where journalists and professional book reviewers will be like, oh, I want this book. Let me grab an e-copy and then review it. But once again, it's a couple $100 so you can get your book in the pool. Publishers Warehouse actually has a free version. So it's called Bookish Light, if I remember. So if you set up a social media profile, you can say, here are my books, and you can say, hey, and you could offer it up for one of their book reviewers to read. There's no guarantee that they will read it. But if they do, then it is a free review for you in Publishers Warehouse. Or you could pay $500 for a guaranteed review. And then there's also a few companies that will do email lists. Written Word Media is one of the ones I've been experimenting with lately. So what they do is they have these huge book lists of like people who are interested in fantasy or people who are interested in romance. And let's say your book is only $2.99 because one of their email lists is for books that are $4.99 and under. So you can say, okay, I'm going to spend so much money to have my book included in this list, which is going to be thousands of people who are interested in your genre. Hit or miss results from those, I've noticed. So you really have to make sure that you're targeting the right people. So marketing can take up a lot of time, like I mentioned before. So really kind of narrow, what can you do? What do you want to learn? What do you think is going to be most profitable for you? Who are people who read your books that you're writing? Where do they hang out?
Like a printer's roll. You could bring your books at printer's
You
roll.
could. It costs
Conference.
money to be a printer's
Oh, do
row.
it?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a
oh,
vendor
okay.
fee. So
Okay.
sometimes you can get discounts, like if you're like a nonprofit and you can have a booth there.
Church conferences. something
Maybe.
like that,
So I've also done some like author fairs. Sometimes there's a tent booth that you have to pay. Sometimes there's not. And then you really have to be aware of like, okay, is it worth the money? If it costs me $100 to have a table at an event, do I
Oh,
think I'm going to make $100 of profit? You got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so these were examples of like marketing. You can't see this right now, but this is just like a small 3-second video, which is an animated version of one of my covers that I posted on Instagram. So this is like a header that I made for Twitter. And then I also I turn them into bookmarks if anyone wants them. So then it's got my QR code. And then on the back's like my socials and where you can go directly to Amazon. So if I'm going to events, I like hand these out, you know? So marketing material. So here's a bunch. If you also just want to look at it, and I just had them printed. It cost me like $40 to get 1,000 of them.
Where did you use?
Gotprint.com. You know, but I did the design myself. You know, so I developed the QR codes
I like that
and whatnot.
purple.
And then also on social media. So like Faye Dreams is the book that I had come out most recently. But the trend on social media at the time was like all of these arrows pointing to the elements that are within your book. So I made a bunch of graphics like this in Canva and I just put them on my social media around the web. So these are examples. So quick things you could do in Canva. It takes me maybe 10-15 minutes to make one of these and I just post them around. So
Do you have a website?
I do. That QR code will take you to it. But yeah, so other ways to like build your momentum for marketing, especially in the indie author space, it comes down to volume. Unless you're writing nonfiction and it's a subject matter that a lot of people want to buy and hear your thoughts on. The more books you have, the more opportunities you have to sell and to bring people into your ecosystem. So if you have one book, you can only, you know, whatever. But if you have 3 books, there's 3 different products you can market. And if you have a series, then as soon as you have someone buy one book, they're more likely to buy the next ones. So the more books you publish, the more read through and the more books someone who likes you can get. But on a shoestring option, if you have your author pages, so Amazon, BookBub, Goodreads, you just set up a profile. But then what happens here is if someone is following you as an author, Amazon, BookBugs, or Goodreads will send out an email saying, hey, this author just published a new book. So you don't even have to contact them, you know, they'll do it for you. It's great. Yep.
I think it's important to mention in Amazon, the author does not have access to the customers.
Correct, not directly, yeah.
Other than what you just said.
You
don't.
Yep. So
Yeah,
I can see my sales data. So I can see how many I've sold. I can see my ranking within Amazon. I cannot tell how they got there. So I don't know if they came from Facebook. I don't know if they came from my email newsletter. Nothing. I know what country they're from. So I'm just going to finish this column. And then the other thing you could do is back matter. I talked about this before, like where you have a list in the back of your book, like here are other books by me. So that's a good way of advertising, and they're already reading your book. Ideally, they liked it because they're at the end. Tell them other things that they could buy. If you have back matter in an ebook, they can be links, which is great. Question.
Jeff asks, how does one secure a QR code?
Canva actually has a way to do it within the system itself. Like in Canva, it was just like make QR code, but there are free websites. Typically what it is it's you take the link you want the QR code to get to, you put it in the website or the web tool, and it generates it for you. So the things you have to be aware of, and I learned this incidentally about PayPal, is some of them are color coded. by which I mean they only work if you print them in color versus if you print them in black and white. So be aware if you're making marketing materials. So the other thing is like a more balanced option, a website. I do have a website. So I update it once in a while. It's a list of all my books. It's a list of like the events that I'll do. So email lists is something else that you can do. So you could do, like I said before, pay for it, or you could do swaps with other authors that you know. Hey, I'm sending out my newsletter this week. Do you want to do a swap with a friend? Writing a sequel. Like I said before, the more books you have to sell. Time is money. You can always have a custom website. I code mine myself, but I use a template from WordPress. So I do pay for my own hosting, which is about $120 a year. You don't have to pay for your own hosting. You can get free websites, but if you're paying for hosting, then I could put in like my own trackers. So then I have an understanding from Google Analytics, who is coming, how long are they staying, what pages are they clicking on? And I have a little more control over editing. And later, once I decide, if I want to decide to have my own web store, then I could do that off of a domain that I actually own. Here's so examples. So this is how my anthologies look on my website. So if you click, it'll take you to a page of all the buy links and such. And this is like what your author list will look like on Goodreads. So all the titles that I have and the ratings, you just really need to make a profile and all of it will kind of fall into place.
I just got an email today from Ingram that said, now customers can buy directly one book.
Yeah, so they, it used to be where you couldn't buy from Ingram directly unless you were a retailer. So like a library or a store. The beta for that beta came out for that a few months ago. I wasn't part of that. So I'm really intrigued to see, but how I will probably use it is if you go to, like, if you click on these, like you go here and be like, okay, here's where you can buy it from Amazon. Here's where you can buy it from Barnes and Noble and so on. For paperback, the only options I have right now is I think I have bookstore.org and Barnes and Noble and Amazon. Now I want to go back and I want to add that Ingram link, because then it's not as if you're buying directly from me, but it cuts out Amazon. So then it gives me a boost.
As I understand it, it gives you that retailer's markup too. So you're getting everything above the cost of
Correct,
printing.
right? Yeah,
Maybe
which would
there's a
be
cut. I didn't read
amazing.
it that
Yeah,
way.
but Ingram also is very bad at giving me data about like, yeah, I know how many books I sold in a month, but I only know the country. It doesn't even tell me if it was Amazon or Barnes and Noble or an indie bookstore that bought it.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
And typically it takes 10 days to deliver from Ingram.
Mhm. Yep.
10 business days, whereas Amazon, you can get it 3 days.
Yeah, and that's like
Custom.
typical for Ingram. So even if you were to like to buy one of my books for the book table, they tell you like usually 2 weeks to deliver because I got to talk to Ingram. Ingram will print it and send it to the bookstore. But I'm okay waiting 2 weeks for a book, and I'm hoping that, and there's this growing awareness within the reader community, I would say, especially those who are interested in supporting indie authors, of where can I buy from a spot that gives the most money to the author? And it's usually going to be the author's own website if they have it, or any type of direct link from a publisher. So where it can, like the books that I have that come out with a publisher, I actually usually direct them to the publisher's website instead of Amazon, because then I get a higher royalty, because we're cutting out a retailer, or where I know I get the highest return. So, which is, I kind of cheat with paperbacks, is bookstore.org. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. So it runs off of Ingram's catalog. So sometimes you'll find indie titles there, but it's a online retailer for paperback and hardcover, some ebooks as well. But a portion of every sale goes to indie bookstores. And you can actually say, I want to support this bookstore specifically if you want to. But I set up myself as an affiliate. So I have like a Gwen Tolios bookstore. So if you buy through my link, my book through the bookstore link, I get like an extra affiliate kickback from it. So it's like an extra like 10 cents, but I'll take it. So profit margins have been here. And that's it. All I have in the appendix is like a resource slide, which you guys will get when you get the slides. So, yeah. So any other final questions?
Beautiful. Oh, my goodness. Like,
Now, are
So-
your books typically between, what was it, 59 to 75 pages?
It depends. So I'm naturally a short story author, so a lot of my short story collections, yeah, are about that size. But my romance is a full book,
Ooh.
right? So it depends on what I'm writing. I tend to run the gauntlet. Yeah, my travelogue that I had come out, it's only ebook at this moment, but print that will probably be about 170, I think. So I'm struggling to figure out how to do all the images because I do this myself and that's new for me. So
I just have a quick confirmation to ask.
So
We
you
get the slides
suggested
immediately?
this for photo-heavy books.
mhm.
Do you also suggest that for like illustrated books, like children's books?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it in some capacity. So where's Faye? So in this one, this is my first time trying to put images in novels. So they're really tiny because there's actually image restrictions that you have to use. So they have to be a certain quality, they have to be a certain pixel size. And even this, like I had to make them really tiny and they're still a little blurry. So like I'm still learning like how to do that part myself, I will admit. But Atticus would probably be a better way to do it, but you also have to make sure your starting images are what you need. Yeah.
I don't understand.
Just one
So
quick
for
question.
images, you have to make sure not just that you're using the right formatting, but your image itself is appropriate in terms of dimensions, colors, size, quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it explains that in
Mhm.
software, but that's the best one to use.
Yes. Mhm.
Just the confirmation on getting the slides. Are they
Pardon me?
coming by email and when do we receive those?
Yes, Ricardo, I'll send the slides via email. When
Okay.
you registered on the Oak Park Public Library website, you also
Okay.
put in your email. I'm gonna confirm I have yours. Yep, I have yours.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Gwen. I appreciate the presentation. Very good.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, thanks for coming.
We have one question, who's typing. What is the ethical stance of using imagery from, say, Pixabay or other free art platforms in addition to paying the artist?
Go for it. A lot of things like Pixabay, there's already a licensing agreement put in place when you sign up for the site. So a lot of authors like to pay for it in some case because it's like support your other creators. And that's one of the benefits of actually paying for a pro Canva subscription or BookBrush is because part of your pro fee is paying for the licensing of these images that might be coming from Pixabay or Getty's. So feel free to use it, but also look at the licensing at the end of every image. As an FYI, I don't know if everyone will get here, but most imaging, like if you're paying to use them in a commercial license, like as a book cover, you can only do it if you make under so much money a year with that product. I think it's $10,000. So if you're making more, like it's probably good at like making more than $10,000 on a book is pretty rare. Like I think even the average income of a traditionally published author is $10,000 a year from their books. It's so, but if you hit that point, then you really need to think about, okay, I can't use the images that I'm licensing online anymore. You got to go to someone who's creating a custom cover. And you should be if you're making that much money.
So why do it?
Right? Well, like honestly, I'm in a point where I go crazy if I don't write. Like at this point, it's just like ingrained in me, right? So, and I won't just do this type of writing. Like I'll fully admit that I also do fan fiction writing. So I just write for free and I put it up on the web. I've been doing that for years. So I'm writing anyways, so I'm just putting it up here. I'm making money from this, not enough to quit my day job, you know, but it's a passion thing for me. And that's also like when I mentioned before, like Kindlepreneur, Kindle Rocket is not a tool for me because I'm not necessarily looking at this as a business to supplement my current income. I just want to share my stories and make sure that I'm not paying to share them. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to write the great American novel.
Go do it.
Yay.
So, but also
I
like,
want to go broke doing it.
and a lot of things, like you actually see it in like literary awards, a lot of novels that are known for being beautiful literary pieces of prose aren't always commercial successes. There tends to be a different avenue.
thank you all for coming.
Yeah, it's awesome.